We do know that Camilla had told friends at this point that she was surprised at the unexpected side to William that she had found. The boy's got a temper, she apparently said. Prince William and Queen Camilla might be close now, but it wasn't a straightforward path to get there, with rows and heartache and complaints of leaking stories along the way.
You won't believe the battle that went down behind the elegant walls of the palace. We all know the royal family lives by strict rules, but what happens when those rules are used to hurt a child? For years, Princess Catherine kept the peace, but when the attacks turned subtle, a quiet word over a scone, a public shaming about playing the piano, she had to choose. She could follow protocol, or she could protect her daughter, Princess Charlotte. This decision wasn't easy, but it led to the intense confrontation we're about to dive into. This isn't a story about a public feud. It's about a secret war fought with whispers and cold stares. Did the Queen Consort cross an unforgivable line?
The new king's darling wife has become the Queen Consort.
And how did Catherine manage to win a silent battle against the most powerful people in the country, just to defend her little girl's confidence? Get ready, because we're going back to the beginning of that spring weekend at Windsor, to the exact moment Catherine realized the truth and started gathering the evidence that would lead to the ultimate royal showdown. The unmistakable signal. Every royal gathering at Windsor Castle looks like perfection, a smooth, polished machine running on centuries of rules. But Princess Catherine knew better. These weren't just parties. They were complicated, high-stakes arenas. To survive and thrive, you needed more than a title. You needed eyes in the back of your head. Catherine's best tool, the one she relied on most, wasn't protocol. It was her instincts. And one spring morning, during a luncheon for one of Queen Camilla's charities, those instincts went haywire. The worry wasn't about a missed handshake or a wrong curtsy. It was about her daughter, Princess Charlotte. Usually, Charlotte is all fire and confidence, the one who keeps her brothers in line. Today, though, she was shutting down. She wasn't moody or throwing a tantrum. She was actively trying to disappear, to make herself as small and invisible as possible. This kind of deep, internal retreat signaled a problem far bigger than any schoolyard argument. It meant the pressure was coming from somewhere inside the royal bubble. The family was spread out, the adults talking business, the children having tea in a nearby salon. Catherine, engaged in necessary small talk, caught a flicker of movement. Charlotte walking quickly past an open doorway. The sight was instantly alarming. Her face was pale, and her mouth was pulled into a tight, thin line. It was the face of a child who had been truly hurt and humiliated. Catherine didn't hesitate. She cut off the conversation mid-sentence, a huge breach of royal manners, and went to find her daughter. She found Charlotte trying to hide near a service entrance, staring at the floor. It was a clear cry for solitude. Catherine immediately knelt, bringing them eye to eye. Her voice was gentle, but her demand for the truth was firm. Charlotte's whispered answer hit Catherine like a punch. "Granny Camilla said I was showing off. She told me not to speak unless I was spoken to." This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a mistake about reaching for the wrong fork. This was a direct, intentional enforcement of hierarchy. Charlotte had merely answered a simple question during a game. Camilla used that small action to issue a clear, cutting command for silence and submission, reminding a young girl exactly where she stood in the royal ranking. The strategic watch. Catherine's immediate reaction was a protective hug, but inside, a critical decision was being made. For years, Catherine had swallowed the minor snubs and subtle criticisms aimed at her by senior royals. It was the price she paid for peace. But the moment the crosshairs moved from her to her children, the rules changed completely. She realized the rigid formality that Camilla learned from an older, stricter generation was now being weaponized against Charlotte's young confidence. Catherine swore that protecting her daughter's sense of self was now the only priority, even above royal harmony. The rest of the day turned into a cold, calculated watch. Catherine became a quiet observer. As the family moved to the garden for a walk, Camilla was flawless, laughing easily with Charles. This composure, this ability to compartmentalize the harsh moment from the morning, only confirmed Catherine's worst fears. This wasn't accidental. It was a conscious display of authority. The fact that Charlotte remained visibly small and withdrawn proved the attack was successful. The surveillance didn't take long to pay off. During the refreshment break, the next offense occurred. Charlotte reached for a second scone. It was a tiny, unremarkable action, but Camilla seized it. With a benevolent, fake smile, she delivered the next critical blow. "Perhaps one is enough, darling. We don't want to appear greedy." Catherine saw the damage being done in real time. These weren't large fights. They were microaggressions, small, cutting words that chip away at a child's foundation. Separately, they were nothing. Together, they were a systemic attack on Charlotte's self-worth. Catherine held her tongue. Her silence was not compliance. It was a deliberate tactic to build a mountain of undeniable, factual evidence against a sustained pattern of behavior. Prince William, occupied with duties and focused on senior discussions with his father, missed the entire, quiet, emotional battle being waged around his daughter.
It's been obviously fantastic, and she's been a little joy of heaven. But at the same time, it's a more responsibility looking after two little ones.
The line is drawn. The tension finally boiled over, reaching its breaking point in the formal sitting room. The children were allowed a small window of time in the room before their nannies took them away. Charlotte, seeking normalcy and a creative escape, bravely asked Camilla if she could play the piano, adding the quiet request, "Just quietly." Camilla's response was definitive, cutting, and delivered for maximum impact. She paused, looking directly at the young princess, and ordered, "The piano?" "Darling, that's not necessary. Let the grown-ups enjoy some peace. Why don't you sit still like a proper young lady?" The command was specific, designed to be publicly humiliating and enforce instant, visible obedience. Charlotte's cheeks flushed crimson, and she instantly folded her hands, closing her book. Catherine, watching from nearby, felt the emotional temperature of the room drop. This wasn't about manners. It was about control and diminishment. Catherine's eyes locked onto Camilla's. It was a prolonged, intentional stare, a silent but clear declaration of war, forcing the older royal to look away and acknowledging the gravity of the challenge. The final phase began that evening back at Adelaide Cottage, the family's smaller, more private haven. Catherine went straight to the source, securing the final undeniable proof from Charlotte herself. "Granny Camilla doesn't like when I talk too much." Catherine then presented her case to William. She avoided emotion, delivering a clinical, factual report detailing the pattern, the silencing, the shaming over food, and the public humiliation over the piano. She made it clear this was a deliberate effort to diminish their child. William, fiercely protective, immediately agreed. "This isn't something we let slide," Catherine stated, setting the non-negotiable term. William agreed, stressing only that they needed a strategic approach to avoid institutional fallout. The very next morning, the first move was made. Charlotte was kept home from Camilla's charity event, using the excuse of a minor cold. This physical enforcement of the boundary was a necessary shield. When news of Charlotte's absence reached Camilla, her whispered dismissal that the child was probably too delicate for a little mud was relayed back to Catherine. This final piece of passive aggression solidified Catherine's resolve. The conflict was continuous, personal, and now demanded a direct, principled intervention regardless of the consequences. The stage was set for the showdown. The Highgrove showdown, drawing the public line. The strategic groundwork had been laid. Catherine had the evidence, William had agreed, and the first shot, keeping Charlotte home from the charity event, had been fired. Now the conflict had to move to its final stage, a public, formal declaration that the rules of engagement had changed forever. This high-stakes drama played out at a private dinner at Highgrove. This location wasn't chosen by accident. It's a place deeply connected to King Charles's own identity, making any confrontation there carry immense weight. The atmosphere that evening was thick and uncomfortable, even before the main event. Everyone was aware of the recent sudden distance. The tension was like a poorly tuned string that was about to snap. The crucial moment arrived when Charlotte, keeping up appearances, entered the room briefly to offer her polite goodnights. This was Camilla's opportunity for one final, public assertion of dominance. She looked at the young girl and delivered a seemingly light, yet utterly targeted slight. "Are you sure you're not too worn out to even be here, darling?" This comment, dropped casually in front of Charles and William, was designed to keep the narrative going. Charlotte is fragile, Charlotte is a burden, Charlotte is a nuisance who struggles with the rigors of royal life. For Catherine, this was the trigger. Her reaction was a masterclass in controlled assertion. Her first, non-negotiable step was to protect the child. She calmly directed Charlotte to leave the room, ensuring the door closed and the child was physically and psychologically safe from the explosion that was about to happen. Only then, with the silence of the room now heavy and absolute, did Catherine turn to engage. Camilla, sensing the shift, tried to minimize the incident immediately, falling back on the oldest defense, deflecting the fault onto the victim. She labeled Charlotte as very sensitive, implying the child was the problem, not the words. Catherine cut through the noise with immediate surgical precision. She didn't raise her voice, but her words were colder than any winter wind. "No, she is not too sensitive. She is a child, and she deserves to be spoken to with kindness." This redefined the entire issue. It wasn't about a personality clash. It was about a fundamental failure of conduct and basic decency. The confrontation quickly escalated. Catherine didn't dwell on the tired comment. She deployed her collected evidence. She moved beyond the current night's slight and brought up the entire pattern of behavior. "It's been happening for weeks. It is a pattern, and I will not stand by while my daughter is made to feel less than." This placed the burden of proof squarely on Camilla and turned the matter into a serious family crisis. Catherine framed the issue as a failure of institutional and familial duty. She leaned into her most powerful weapon, her maternal authority. In the modern monarchy, this moral mandate carries more weight than any inherited title. Catherine stated, absolutely and without apology, that she would not let anyone, no matter who they are, undermine her confidence. Camilla attempted the final, traditional aristocratic retreat, dismissing the damage with the classic upper-class dismissal. Children are resilient, Kate. They bounce back. This was an attempt to invoke the rigid, old-world notion that children must simply endure and obey. But Catherine had studied the modern world, and she countered with an undeniable psychological truth. Children remember how they're spoken to, especially by those who are supposed to protect them. This single line crushed the old argument. It made the conflict about psychological damage versus simple respect, and Catherine knew she had the moral high ground. The power of this exchange lay entirely in William's strategic silence. He was present, he was witnessing the tension, but he did not speak to defend Camilla, nor did he attempt to stop Catherine. His lack of intervention was the ultimate public confirmation that the parental boundary was unified and completely non-negotiable. William's silent agreement was the final veto on the Queen Consort's behavior.
I'm so proud of my wife and my father for how they've handled all of last year. My children have managed brilliantly as well.
King Charles, witnessing the united front, was immobilized. He knew that any attempt to intervene on Camilla's behalf would only turn a controlled confrontation into a full-scale family war. The line had been drawn, and the terms were final. Catherine finished the discussion by simply excusing herself, maintaining her dignity, and confirming that the debate was over. The conditions had been stated. Now, compliance was the only option. She had not only protected her daughter but had redefined the meaning of strength within the crown. Strategic victory, enforcement, and lasting peace. The moment Catherine walked out of the Highgrove dining room, the war was essentially won. She secured the most crucial victory upstairs with Charlotte. "You did nothing wrong. You were polite, you were kind, and that's all I'll ever ask of you." This final, powerful reassurance ensured that Charlotte internalized a message of empowerment, not guilt, breaking the cycle of shame Camilla had tried to enforce. Downstairs, Charles tried to smooth things over with strained conversation, but Camilla remained pointedly silent, a clear sign that she understood the permanence of the boundary Catherine had just set. The months that followed were defined by the strict, disciplined enforcement of this new boundary. Camilla was immediately and noticeably excluded from Charlotte's school events and small family gatherings, a clear, strategic use of social consequence to signal her diminished access. This was not a punishment for the public. It was a necessary shield for the child, and it communicated clearly to the entire royal household that Catherine was now actively and personally managing all interactions involving her children and the Queen Consort. The true, enduring test of this new dynamic arrived with the family's traditional summer gathering at Balmoral Castle. This ancient estate in the Scottish Highlands is the symbolic heart of royal tradition and family ritual. Catherine's attendance was based on an unspoken yet rigidly upheld condition. Charlotte would not be left unsupervised with Camilla, not even for a minute. This physical enforcement was paramount to restoring Charlotte's sense of security. Freed from the constant, subtle threat, Charlotte finally began to shed her withdrawn behavior, returning to her natural confidence, her laughter echoing freely through the ancient halls. However, Camilla, reluctant to fully relinquish her authority, attempted one final, highly personal attack. Finding Charlotte briefly alone, a lapse in supervision that must have been momentary, she delivered a subtle jab disguised as advice, extending the criticism directly to Catherine's parenting. "Sometimes your mommy forgets that too." This was a clear attempt to undermine Catherine's authority and break the mother-daughter bond she had worked so hard to rebuild. Catherine's intervention was immediate and definitive. Her language, though calm, carried the weight and finality of her previous actions. "She was only being a child," Catherine stated, firmly placing the blame back on the context, not the child. "She's growing up just fine, and she'll do so without being made to feel like a problem. I'd like a bit more kindness around her." The boundary was reinforced, and the matter was closed, permanently. The long-term result was a permanent, observable shift in the architecture of their relationship. By the end of the summer, the palace staff confirmed the change. Camilla actively and deliberately maintained her distance. She offered no further commentary on the children's behavior, their clothes, or their manners. This subtle, yet total withdrawal was the most profound evidence of compliance within the highly structured environment. Catherine had achieved her objective not through external drama or media scandal, but through the strategic, principled application of her maternal authority, winning the quiet war fought on the home front. The Balmoral summer, bathed in the fresh, cool light of the Scottish Highlands, became more than a retreat. It became the stage where an era was solidified. Catherine watched her daughter, finally running free and unburdened, her laughter echoing joyfully across the ancient stones of the estate. The princess knew the silent, strategic conflict had achieved a lasting peace. She hadn't just protected a child. She had fundamentally redefined the meaning of strength within the crown itself. The rigid notions of old hierarchy and silent compliance had been overcome by the quiet, fierce, and unyielding power of a mother's love, proving that modern parenthood had finally carved its space within the ancient institution. Gathered for the traditional final portrait, all smiles and practiced grace for the cameras, Catherine's gaze settled first on Charlotte, whose radiant confidence now eclipsed all past shadows, and then briefly on the Queen Consort, who maintained a polite, visible distance. In that instant of perfect stillness, Catherine understood a profound truth. The greatest power in the monarchy was not the title one inherited, but the moral boundary one chose to defend. She had ensured the next generation would stand tall and whole, knowing that the most sacred loyalty in life is owed to one's own truth and well-being. The consequences of her stand reverberated throughout the palace, confirming that some lines, once drawn, cannot be erased, even by royal decree. If this compelling story of courage and clear boundaries resonated with you, please be sure to like this video, share it with a friend, and hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the untold stories of the royal world. And that brings us to the cool, fresh air of the Balmoral summer. It wasn't just a holiday, it was the victory parade for a mother's strength. Watching her daughter, Charlotte, finally run free, her laugh echoing across the ancient stone, Catherine knew the quiet war was over. She hadn't just guarded a child, she had changed the rules for the whole royal family. The old ideas of being silent and just accepting things, they were beaten by the simple, fierce power of a mother's love. As they all stood together for the final family photo, all smiles and perfect manners for the world to see, Catherine looked at Charlotte, whose confidence now shone brighter than any jewel. Then she glanced at the Queen Consort, who kept a polite, safe distance. In that perfect, still moment, Catherine understood. The real power isn't the title you get, but the boundary you decide to protect. She didn't just win peace. She made sure the next generation would always know that the deepest loyalty you owe is to your own truth. If this story of drawing a hard line for love resonated with you, hit that like button, share this video with a friend who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the untold stories of the royal world.